Okay, recording. Welcome to the Dr. Tom Show. Today, I am really excited to have an old friend and colleague of mine joining us on the show, Dr. Joe-James Tilley. He's an international speaker, a chiropractor, and a wellness expert. And get this, he's on a mission to ignite a wellness revolution and transform lives. He's the founder of the Core Wellness Centres, which is a really successful practice down in Surrey here in the UK. He's also founded a recent lifestyle plan called Transform, which I'm very excited to get into today. And he really does believe that for society to create better health, it needs a critical shift away from the Western disease-focused medical approach towards a whole person approach. What a fantastic intro. What a great person. I'm super excited to have you on the show. Dr. Joe-James Tilley, welcome to the Dr.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for having me, Tom. And I appreciate you for doing this podcast. It takes a lot of energy and effort to put something on like this. And this is all for the greater good. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I received that. I appreciate that. And I know we just had a pre-show chat that people are going to get so much out of today. So buckle up, stay with us because you're going to get something really special. I'm going to dive straight into this today, Joe. You talk about a critical shift away from a Western approach. There's two things to cover there, really. What is a critical shift and what is the Western approach? So what do you mean by a critical shift and what are we trying to move away from? And then we're going to get into what we want to go towards.
It's a great question, Tom. And I think the critical shift is really down to a total overhaul of our current healthcare system. And I think the biggest issue that we've got out there right now is that we're trying to treat lifestyle problems with medical solutions. And that just clearly does not work. 3 out of 4 of us, 75% of us lose our life due to a chronic lifestyle disease. And the famous thing I love to say is you can't medicate yourself out of a problem that you behaved yourself into. It's virtually impossible. We have to change our habits and we have to address the cause. I always say DC obviously means Doctor of Chiropractic, but I love to call it Doctor of Cause because we have to figure out the causation involved in these lifestyle diseases. And I really think where we're sitting right now is in a place where we have a sick care system and it's not actually a healthcare system where people are going to this system to treat their symptoms with a drug. And when they resolve their symptoms, they feel that they've gotten healthier or fixed the problem. And the biggest issue here is that just because you resolve a symptom, it does not mean at any point that you resolve the cause of that diagnosis or problem in the first place. So consequently, we have someone that gets rid of the symptom, they carry on with the bad lifestyle habits, and then they just slowly get sicker and sicker and sicker. Now, I do want to point out here, I do honestly believe there is a time for medication and surgery. And that is at a point, Tom, where it truly saves your life. My dad wouldn't be here today. He got pneumonia 3 or 4 years ago. And without having medication at that point, he would have died. So there's no doubt about it. Medication can save our lives. But we are living in this society right now where there is a pill for every ill. And I think people are waking up on that, Tom, and they're starting to want to address the cause. So this critical shift is about turning this NSS, this national sickness system, into an NHS, a national health system. And we need that sickness system to deal with sickness with medication for some people in emergency. But for those people that have lifestyle diseases, we need a much better way to address that. And that's what I want to bring to the table.
I love that. And it's so simply put. I mean, it really is so simple that sometimes people shun that. So if we're talking about some of those lifestyle things that people are currently in, and we know that they're only addressing it when it becomes a symptom, how can people register or even see that before it's an issue? What are some of these lifestyle issues that people are maybe unbeknown to them doing that will eventually, and we can pretty categorically say that it will eventually cause something down
100%.
the line. What are those things?
It's such a great question. And I think what we're hitting on here is that you can feel perfectly fine, but still be very sick underneath. 50% of people that have fatal heart attacks have 0 symptoms the day before a fatal heart attack. And women can have breast cancer for up to 18 months and feel no symptoms whatsoever. So the question is, when did they truly get sick? They got sick when the dysfunction or the dis-ease, the lack of ease, started to occur within their bodies. And over a process of time, that lack of ease led to symptoms. And then when those symptoms were collaborated and brought together, we gave them a diagnosis. But this happened a long time prior. So I think what I feel people must do in order to prevent these diseases is to know their numbers, know their physiology. The more data we can get about our bodies, the better we can perform. If you think of a sports car, I know if you sit in a nice car, there's a lot of things that come up on the dashboard computer because it tells you everything about the engine. And the more information you get back from the engine, the better you know how well that engine's performing. And I think when we relay that analogy to human beings, people must understand objectively what their physiology is telling them about their body. So for example, blood analysis, it tells us so much about what's going on in the body. Just simply knowing, Tom, something like your waist circumference, that can tell you so much about your body and how much visceral fat and inflammatory fat you have on the inside. Knowing things like your blood pressure, knowing your x-rays. We know, we're both chiropractors, Tom, that without seeing your spine, we don't truly know how degenerate it is. So we take that number, we have a look at the spine as a structure with x-ray, so we know exactly what's going on the inside. And I think really what I'm doing is just extrapolating this out to people's overall health.
And you talk about some of those. I think something came to my mind there, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Is it for every extra inch on the waist, it's another mile of blood vessels or something like that, which is
Yeah,
a huge amount of extra stress on the heart?
Yeah, I mean, the huge thing, Tom, with waist circumference, and the numbers to know if you're listening to this, if you're over 35 for a man, or sorry, over 40 for a man, or over 35 at the widest part of your waist for a woman, then it's high chance that you're pushing yourself towards something called metabolic syndrome. But what goes hand in hand with that is a 3 to 20-fold increased chance of having type 2 diabetes and a 3 to 4 times increased chance of having coronary heart disease and death through a heart attack. So what happens when our waist circumference goes up, Tom, is often on the inside, we have an increase of something called visceral fat. And we have all sorts of different types of fat on our body. Really, there's two actually. Subcutaneous fat, the one that's in our skin, in our tissues, it's the one everybody can see that we don't like the look of. And then there's the visceral fat, and that's the stuff that's deep around our organs. Now, that visceral fat is the most aggressive type of inflammatory fat on the body. So inflammation is the precursor to pretty much all diseases that we have in our body. I always tell people, Tom, that the word itis means inflammation in Latin. So tendinitis is an inflamed tendon, appendicitis is an inflamed appendix, colitis an inflamed gut, and arthritis is an inflamed joint. But if we're inflaming our body, if we create a lot of inflammation, then what that effectively does is lead us towards so much sickness and disease, from things like dementia to Alzheimer's to heart disease to diabetes. The list goes on and on and on. And even in professions like us, where we're dealing with neuromusculoskeletal conditions and people are having pain in joints, etc., if they are chronically inflamed from the inside out through having obesity and raised visceral fat, it makes it harder for them to heal because they're chronically creating this inflammation on their body. So waist circumference is such a great number because it literally, just by reducing that alone, you can significantly change, if not save, your life.
It's extraordinary. And we'll talk a little bit about how people can start, because for some people that's a really difficult mountain to climb. But what's interesting is there's also those people, the fit, tanned, athletic guy who went for the runs who drops, and what caused that sickness. And you're talking about this visceral fat, this stuff inside that we don't necessarily see as well that can surround our organs. So there's a misconception with health being about how you look purely as well. So maybe a little comment on that. Like, if I look healthy, is that necessarily the case?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common conversation that we have in this wellness field, and that's how you look and how you feel doesn't really dictate your overall health, because you can feel perfectly fine and still be sick. And you can even look, as you said, the trainer, perfectly fine and still be sick. And I think this leads me back to this discussion about wellness and what truly wellness is, because I think what happens in society is we get hooked up with one of the key 4 elements. And the key 4 elements to me is, number one, you have to function good. You have to have a nervous system that is working right, because we know the nervous system is the master healing and master regulating system of your body. We live our life through our nervous system. So number one, you must function right. But to support that, you must eat right, you must think right, and you must move right. And if you're obsessed with one of those components, you can lose the other components. And this would be the case in something like a personal trainer or someone who's performing for a body expo, where they're trying to add muscle to their arms, look extremely lean on the outside. And you may look at that person and think, God, he's a Spartan, like what a great physique. But who knows how that person's thinking? Who knows whether or not that guy's taking testosterone boosters and extreme amounts of protein that are putting pressure on his liver? Who knows actually what's going on with the mind and with the nutritional components? Who knows if this person's subluxated and posturally incorrect and having problems there? So, and this is why you hear of that person and you say, I don't know why she had that heart attack. She used to run every day. And then they had that heart attack, because the point is, it's the balance of these components which lead us to ultimately health. And that's the thing that I'm so passionate about, because if you go to your PT, he's going to tell you about being buff. If you go to your guru, he's going to tell you about your mindfulness and the importance of doing your mind. If you go to your nutritionist, he's going to tell you about drinking your green juices, Tom. But you know what I mean? It's that balance. And I think we have to always reel ourselves in and realize it's all of these components that count.
I would agree, and I would attest to that, because one of the things that's ignited my change in my life and how I work with people now is, I started my career and I was really into the gym. I was big, I was muscular, I without the face, I looked good. But it's what happened was, I had a really bad back at the time, and like I was helping people at the time with back pain, with a chronic bad back myself, ignored it, problem continues, I end up having precancer in the bowel. And, there's this stuff on the inside that's just not right. But sometimes we need to be slapped around the head before we do anything. And what you're talking about is doing something before. But if we move on to that, there's a great saying in Shakespeare. He says, stepped in blood so far that to go back would be as treacherous as to go forward, in the sense that we're moving through this treacle if we're being sick. And taking the pill is okay, because to turn around and go backwards seems as much of a struggle as to go forwards. I might as well just continue doing what I was doing anyway. So for those people who are just looking at this mountain and thinking, that is just too hard to climb, what would you say to them? Where can they just start to do something?
It's a great question. And I love that quote. I've never heard that before. I absolutely love that. I'm going to use that one. That's awesome. This is such a good question, because it does seem like such a mountain for some people. They are so deep in it that they must think, how the hell do I get out of this? How do I start making change? And I think there's probably 2 things when I think of this off the top of my head that are critical. Number one, we have to find on some form of level a why. And we've talked about this before, but we have to have a why and a reason behind why we're going to do this and make this change. And so many times, Tom, I see this is when people make the biggest changes, is when they have the deepest and the biggest whys. It's those parents doing it because they want to see their grandchildren, or doing it because they want to be able to throw their kids around. It's not just about them, it's about something that's bigger than them. So dig deep on this. Do you really want to be here a long time? And do you really want to be functional a long time? I know a lot of people say, like, I'd rather have a short life and a happy life, or whatever it is they say, but chronic disease is suffering for 5 to 10 years at the end of your life. You don't have to have that. I want to tell you that. You do not have to have that. So find your why. That's number one. Number 2 is, although you have a why, you have to love yourself. And this comes back to self-love. I always tell people, you have to be selfish with your health to be selfless in your life. And what that means, if you think about it, when someone's sick, Tom, who do they speak about?
Themselves.
Right. So when you're sick, you tend to just talk about yourself all the time and your own pains and your own symptoms. So how hard is it to be actually selfless when you can help everybody else, when you're so self-consumed with yourself? So you have to be selfish with your wellness, selfish with your health, selfish with your time to work out, to see your chiropractor, to get a massage. Be selfish. So then when you look after yourself and you know everything's intact and everything's working good and you've got the energy, you're going to show up as the best person in your life to be selfless, which means you can help everybody else because you don't need to worry about me because I'm okay. So I can help you. So it's so important. Be selfish with your health to be selfless in your life. That's number 2. And that comes down to self-love. And then number 3, and one of the biggest things, and it's what's made my job successful with people, is that you make them accountable. It's accountability, that you need a support group. And this can be anything, guys, from a Facebook group to a friend, to a family member, to a chiropractor, to whoever it is, but have someone in a close circle with you who's going to hold you accountable to be the best version of you, and they're not going to let you slip.
It's amazing. I'm almost speechless because I'm trying to think about how I could probably move that forwards. So people can dig into their why and they can figure out what's going on. The self-love I find very difficult for people to do. Very difficult. Can we get even more tactical on that and think about something that they can start with to do that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's quite a tough one, actually. I think this whole self-love thing, a lot of this comes down to emotional and mental health. And so many of us have belief systems around the world, about the world, given to us by a mother, father, teacher, preacher that do not serve us. And they push us into a place of fear, which, as we all know, fear is false evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're in this place of fear and defense and shut down, our heart space is shut down. It's so hard for us to start loving ourselves when we're in so much fear. So I think we have to translate and transcend from this place and get out of a place of fear. And when I think about it, we have to change our state in order for us to do that. And part of our state is our posture. So as we know, rounding our shoulders, closing our heart, putting ourselves into this stress space where we're breathing up here in our chest and we're very shallow, it doesn't put us in the best state to start loving ourselves and thinking about ourselves because we are in fear. So I would say the first place to start with starting to love yourself a little bit more is to change your state. Now that might be open your chest. It might be go for a walk in nature and feel connection. I think that's another great word, connection and alignment. And I was on a group speaking last night, and we were talking about the importance of connection and alignment. And I asked the question to the group because everybody was giving me the same answer. Alignment and connection, most people get it through nature. And I wanted to know, like, why do we, what were these people's answers as to why they think we get greater connection and alignment through nature? And I said, I think it's because we are actually wild animals and it's our natural state to be in an ecosystem where we are integrated with nature and not an ecosystem where man is at the top of the pyramid, which is what the Western world is, ecosystem. So when we get back to that ecosystem, when we get around nature, it brings us alive, it makes us feel connected. And I think it's in those places where we can then start looking at self-love and self-worth. But it's a tough question. I think to start with, just do something each day that's going to step you in the right direction towards a better, greater version of you. So for some people, that might be making a green juice in the morning, a green smoothie. It might be going for a walk in nature in the woods. It might be taking 10 minutes in the morning to list everything in a diary of what you're grateful for. And I know I've applied this in my life, and I know you have as well, Tom, and it's gratitude is hugely powerful to change our state. So I think to start with, guys, if you're struggling, you're listening to this, just do one thing. Just do one thing. Maybe spend some time in nature and change your state.
I love it. I love it. You worked your way around to a brilliant answer. I really like the posture thing, and it's interesting. I did a talk several years ago, and the first thing I got everybody to do was stand up and put their arms above their head and open their chest out, which is the physical position of pride. And it's amazing how it changes people's state. So, like you say, in the morning, maybe just walk outside. Therefore, you're outside and in nature, and lift your head up. It completely changes. And if we look at the world today that's down on their phones or at their desks, they're in that curled up posture. If you're really upset, what's the first thing you do? You curl up. Amazing. I'm really intrigued to find out a little bit more about Transform. Are you in a position to share some stuff on Transform with us, and the building blocks of that and how it can help people?
Yeah, absolutely. So my vision for Transform is effectively a wellness program, a lifestyle program that's going to go worldwide. And for me, it's about significantly shifting and changing lives. And we need to do that through habitual change. This is not about a program of care that lasts for a certain period of time and then terminates. This is about lifestyle change for life. So Transform really brings those four components together that I was talking about. It's all about functionality and the way our nervous system and our body's moving and working. It's about exercise. It's about getting us breathing, breaking our exercise down to three specific areas: strength, cardio, and flexibility work. It's a question I get a lot, like, how should I be working out? We must make sure we've got balance in our workouts. I always find with exercise, people work on what they're good at. So if we're good at strength, we lift weights. If we're good at flexibility, we do that. But when we try and intermingle these disciplines, we find we're weak in the other one. So we must make sure we've got good balance in those different areas of our workouts, and all of the workouts in Transform create that balance for you. We've got nutrition, obviously part of the program. We teach you the good eating habits. We work from a template of foods that we feel are right for us as a species, and we modify them accordingly to you. And then we have the mindfulness side of the program, where we're going to introduce you to 16 different people who run guided meditations. You're going to have a regular ability to work on different areas of your mind. And we bring this program together over a period of time, and we're looking to transform your life. It's simple as that. And the thing with Transform, we say Transform is for eating habits, for thinking habits, for moving habits, for functional habits, and it's for everyone. And that's what the four stands for in the Transform logo. So super excited about that. It's been a long time coming, and for me, a lot of this has been boosted because I've realized that my impact as a wellness expert and chiropractor has been very much restricted to helping people in my local area. And this message needs to go worldwide, and it needs to happen rapidly. So for me, this is about a bigger vision. It's about addressing and reaching more people in my life, and transforming more people. So I'm super excited about it, Tom. Thank you for bringing it up.
I'm really excited to see that. And I love this question for people who are so passionate, of which you are, is if the majority of people adopted Transform, what is the potential for this planet?
Wow. Well, I think the straight up obvious answer is a reduction in chronic illness. And I think that's the straight and simple answer. This is a world where people start to think about causation, and they start to think about them and the position that they are in when it comes to healing. And I think the current health model is a model that is not liberating. It's very reliant on medication. And I want to liberate people. I want to set people free. I want to give people the understanding and the knowledge that they need so they can take their health back into their own hands and not leave it down to their insurance company, chiropractor, doctor, surgeon, friend. They are responsible, nobody else, for their health. So I see a world, if people with Transform, that's healthier for sure than it is now. And I will leave this planet a happy man if I manage to achieve that.
That is extraordinary. And I can see because if people are listening to this on the podcast, watch the YouTube and just see the conviction in Joe's face when he's saying that. It is incredible. So I suppose to finish this out, I want you to speak directly to that person who is struggling, who has dabbled with getting their health right, but always seems to revert back to where they are. They're starting to lose the will or to see the point in doing anything about it.
Hmm.
If you could just speak directly to that person and give them something, in parting that they can do, or some words of wisdom that they can take, so that they really can, from listening to this, start to
Yeah.
transform their life.
Okay. So first of all, if you are listening to this and you are that person, I firstly want you to know that you are an absolute miracle. You're a gift to this earth, and your birthright is to experience the greatest health and potential that you've ever witnessed in your life before. You deserve that. You're worth it, and you should love yourself enough to experience it. And what I want to tell you is that you can do it. You are not in a place where you are doomed and you are a victim or a statistic. You can absolutely do it, only if you are willing to and you want to make the changes in your life. Find yourself the right practitioner, provider, chiropractor, or someone that you can see that can lead you through this journey, and hold yourself to the greatest version of you, so you can show up selfless in your life and be the best version of you and bring the best version of you to any situation or relationship in your life. So just do it. You're worth it, and find someone who can help you.
Amazing. Joe, thank you so much. Where can people find out more about you, or find out maybe more about this Transform program?
So we're not launched with Transform website yet, but the easiest way to contact me is through my Instagram page. My name is Dr. Tilley, DrTilley on there. If you are looking for my business connection, it's Core Wellness Centers, CORE Wellness Centers, and we're in Epsom, Surrey. But you can find us through www.corewellnesscenters.com, or you can find our Facebook or Instagram page at the same name. I would love to connect with you. I'm looking to connect with professionals also in this field. So if this resonated with you, let's hook up. Let's see how we can make things work together. It's going to take a tribe of people to make this shift happen, and it can never be done alone. And there's so many connections out there that I'm reaching out to who are also on this mission. So let's get together as professionals, and let's really drive this mission forward.
Amazing. Thank you ever so much for being on the show today. I've learned a lot. I've been inspired, and you continue to inspire me. That's why we got you on the show. I can't wait to see Transform come to life, and I can't wait to hear back from our listeners to what they got from today. So, Joe, thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Tom, thank you so much. I really appreciate you too, buddy, and everything you do for everyone.